The smoke rose from New York like black fingers clawing at the schema. Ambassador Sarah Mitchell stood on what remained of the United Nations building, her diplomatic uniform torn and gray with ash. Behind her, the city burned. The same fires that had consumed every major human settlement across Earth now painted the horizon in shades of orange and red. 340 alien warships hung in the atmosphere above her. Massive, silent, waiting. 2.3 billion people had died in the last 72 hours. Sarah looked up at the ships. 12 different species made up the hegemony fleet. For 30 years, she had tried to talk to them. 30 years of peace offers, trade agreements, surrender terms. They had ignored every single one. This would be humanity's last message to the galaxy. Lieutenant Dev Patel crouched beside the communications array, his hands shaking as he worked. 24 years old, fresh out of the diplomatic corps. He should have been evacuating with the others. Instead, he stayed, because someone had to send this final transmission. Sarah straightened her shoulders, faced the camera. Across the galaxy, every ship, every station, every world would receive this broadcast. She had practiced these words for weeks, hoping she would never need to say them. The building shook. More ships landing, bringing more soldiers to finish what they had started. Sarah did not look away from the camera. To the Hegemony Council and all who received this message, her voice was steady despite the chaos around her. I am Ambassador Sarah Mitchell, speaking for the people of Earth and all human colonies. An explosion echoed in the distance, closer than before. For 30 years, we have offered you peace. We opened our worlds to trade. We shared our technology. We offered to join your alliance as equals. She paused. Let the weight of what came next settle in her chest. You responded with invasion. You destroyed our colonies. You enslaved our people. You called us weak because we preferred words to weapons. The ground trembled. Heavy footsteps in the building below. Kathvar warriors. The Hegemony's shock troops. 2.4 meters tall. 340 kilograms of muscle and rage. They would be here soon. We tried to show you that strength does not always mean violence. We believe that intelligent species could solve problems without war. Sarah's jaw tightened. We were wrong about you. Behind her, the last evacuation ships lifted from the spaceport. 847 lights against the burning sky, carrying the final survivors to safety, to hidden places the hegemony would never find, places humanity had been preparing for 50 years. You wanted to see what humans are really like when we stop being peaceful. Sarah looked directly into the camera. You are about to find out. The door behind her exploded inward. Kathvar soldiers poured into the room, 4 of them, weapons raised, energy rifles charging with that distinctive whine Sarah had heard too many times in the past 3 days. She did not turn around. To any species watching this transmission, learn from our mistake. The hegemony only respects strength. They will take everything you offer and demand more. They will see your kindness as weakness and use it against you. One of the soldiers barked something in his language. Guttural, angry. Sarah kept speaking. To the human survivors scattered across the galaxy, remember who we were before this day. Remember that we chose peace first. Red targeting lasers danced across the wall in front of her. But also remember that sometimes evil forces you to become something else. Sometimes you have to fight monsters by becoming something they fear more. The soldier shouted again. Closer now. Sarah could feel the heat from his weapon on her back. To the Hegemony Council, she smiled, sad and knowing. You have won this battle. Earth will fall today. But you have made a terrible mistake. The charging whine grew louder. You thought the humans you met were all of us. You were wrong. The diplomats, the farmers, the scientists, the teachers. They were our hope for a better future. But we always had another side, a darker side. The side we kept hidden because we wanted to be better than our ancestors. The soldier spoke in broken English now. Stop talking or we kill you. Sarah laughed, actually laughed. You are going to kill me anyway, but that is fine. She looked into the camera one last time. My death will be the signal they are waiting for. When this transmission ends, they will wake up. And then you will learn why humanity survived every war, every disaster, every enemy we ever faced. Somewhere out there, her brother James was watching. Admiral Kincaid was watching. General Cross was watching. All of them asleep in their ships, waiting for this moment, waiting for permission. We gave you every chance to be our friends. We offered you our best qualities, our creativity, our hope, our desire to build instead of destroy. The energy weapons hummed, high-pitched, final. You threw it all away. You chose to be our enemies. Sarah closed her eyes. Now you will meet the worst parts of human nature, the parts we evolved in millions of years of war and death, the parts we tried to leave behind. The humming stopped. The weapons had reached full charge. We tried peace. Sarah's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried across the galaxy. Now you get war. Real war. Human war. One last breath. And we are very, very good at it. The screen went white. 72 hours earlier, Tom. The conference room in Geneva was built to hold thousands. Curved rows of seats descended toward the central floor where Sarah Mitchell stood alone. Above her, representatives from 12 alien species watched from their designated sections, each delegation behind shields of shimmering energy, each one totally convinced of their superiority. Sarah had stood in this room 89 times before, presenting proposals, offering compromises, begging for peace. This was attempt number 90. Honored Council, she began. The translation nodes embedded in the walls carried her words into 12 different languages simultaneously. Humanity comes before you once again with an offer of friendship. High Commander Zex-7 lounged in his observation pod. The Murthani leader's aquatic form rippled behind transparent aluminum. Four eyes regarded Sarah with something between boredom and contempt. The United Earth government proposes the following terms. Oh no, Sarah activated the holographic display. Numbers and clauses appeared in the air between her and the council. 23% of our colony resources dedicated to joint hegemony human trade, full sharing of our propulsion technology, all human military vessels restricted to defensive patrols within our own systems. She paused. Let them read. Let them see how much humanity was willing to surrender just for the chance at peace. In exchange, we ask only for recognition as a sovereign species under hegemony law, and a guarantee that no further human settlements will be attacked or enslaved. The silence that followed was familiar. They always let her finish. It was part of their game. Let the weak species talk. Let them think they had a voice, then crush that hope with a single word. Zex-7 gestured with one of his tentacles. The translator rendered his language into flat, emotionless English. Proposal denied. Not even a reason. Not anymore. They used to offer excuses. Humanity was too primitive, too aggressive, too different. Now they did not bother. Sarah had expected this. She always expected this. But some small part of her, the part that had chosen diplomacy over every other path, had hoped. May I ask the council to reconsider? Her voice remained steady, professional. Humanity has made 37 separate peace proposals over the past 3 decades. We have offered technology, resources, labor. We have even offered unconditional surrender on 3 separate occasions. General Vex the Kothvar military commander leaned forward in his seat. His species valued strength above all else, honor through combat, victory through dominance. You offer surrender, he said, his voice like grinding stone, because you are weak. Weak species deserve no place in the galaxy. Sarah met his gaze, did not look away. We offer surrender because we believe that peace is worth more than pride. Because we think that intelligent beings should be able to find solutions that do not involve war. Then you are fools as well as weaklings. The other council members made sounds of agreement, clicking, humming. The Verdani representative, a plant-based being whose translated thoughts arrived as electronic pulses, sent a simple message across the displays. Species, unsuited, galactic, cooperation. Sarah had heard it all before. Every insult, every dismissal, every declaration that humanity was somehow fundamentally flawed. She gathered her materials. 30 years of experience had taught her when a negotiation was truly over. Then I will take my leave, honored council. But I ask you to remember this moment. Remember that humanity tried. Remember that we wanted peace. Zek 7's laughter bubbled through his translation speaker. We will remember that your species talked when it should have fought. That is all you will be remembered for. Sarah walked toward the exit, each step echoing in the massive chamber. Behind her, the council was already discussing the next item on their agenda. Humanity had become that insignificant, that forgettable. At the door, she paused, looked back one final time. I hope I am wrong about you, she said quietly. I truly do. No one was listening. Sarah's private office overlooked Lake Geneva. Sunset painted the water gold and crimson. Beautiful, peaceful. The kind of view that made you believe the universe could be kind. She knew better. The encrypted message had arrived 3 hours ago. No sender identification. Just a single quantum-locked file that required her DNA retinal scan and a passphrase she had memorized 20 years earlier. A passphrase she hoped she would never need to use. The file contained 2 items: a speech and evacuation coordinates. Sarah read the speech in silence, every word carefully chosen, every sentence designed to activate something that had been sleeping in the darkness between stars for half a century. No, she whispered to the empty room, not yet. There has to be another way. But even as she said it, she knew. 90 failed negotiations, 12,000 colonists enslaved, 3 unconditional surrenders ignored. The hegemony had made their position clear. They would not stop until humanity was broken or extinct. A knock at the door. Sarah closed the file before responding. Come in. Lieutenant Dev Patel entered carrying a data tablet and wearing the expression of someone who had just read very bad news. Ambassador, I have the latest reports from the frontier colonies. Sarah gestured for him to sit. Patel was young, idealistic. He reminded her of herself 3 decades ago, before the weight of failure had settled into her bones. How bad? Kepler 442b went dark 6 hours ago. Last transmission reported hegemony warships in orbit. No demands, no communication, just bombardment. Sarah closed her eyes. Kepler 442b, population 4,300, mostly agricultural, families, children, and the others. Proxima Station reports increased hegemony patrols. They're expecting an attack within the week. New Olympus is already under siege. Patel hesitated. Ambassador, the Security Council is calling for a military response. We don't have a military that can fight the hegemony. I know, but they're saying we can't just keep watching our people die. Sarah stood, walked to the window. Somewhere out there beyond the stars, she could see human beings were suffering, dying, because she had failed to make peace. Tell the Security Council I'm working on a solution. What solution, ma'am? Sarah looked at her reflection in the glass. 52 years old, most of her adult life spent in conference rooms trying to prevent a war she always knew was coming. One I hoped we would never need. After Patel left, Sarah opened the encrypted file again. Read the speech one more time. Memorized every word. The evacuation coordinates led to locations she did not recognize. Places that did not exist on any public star chart. 847 essential personnel. Scientists, engineers, military commanders. People who had been preparing for this day for 50 years. Her door chimed again. Sarah looked up surprised. She had not called for anyone. Ambassador Mitchell? The voice came through the intercom, female. Familiar in a way Sarah could not quite place. I'm Admiral Rachel Kincaid. I think it's time we talked. Sarah's finger hovered over the door release. Admiral Kincaid. The name appeared in classified files. Reports that officially did not exist. Part of the Go-Os protocol. Part of humanity's last desperate plan. She opened the door. The woman who entered was 46 years old. Lean, hard. Eyes that had seen things they should not have had to see. She wore a civilian jumpsuit, but she moved like military. Like someone trained to kill efficiently and without hesitation. I don't have much time, Kincaid said without preamble. So I'll be direct. The hegemony is going to invade Earth, not in months, not in weeks. We estimate 72 hours. Sarah felt the floor tilt beneath her. How do you know this? Because we've been watching them for 30 years, every ship movement, Every communication, every tactical decision. We know how they think. We know how they plan, and right now they're planning to end the human problem permanently. Then we need to evacuate, get as many people off-world as possible. We're already doing that. 847 essential personnel are being moved to secure locations as we speak. Kincaid's expression softened. Barely. You're supposed to be one of them, Ambassador. Your evacuation window opens in 6 hours. Sarah shook her head. I can't leave. I'm the voice of humanity. If this is truly the end, I need to be here. If you stay, you die. I know. Kincaid studied her for a long moment, then nodded. The Ghost Protocol includes a contingency for your decision, a final transmission, a speech that activates certain assets. I've seen the speech. Then you understand what happens when you deliver it. Sarah walked back to the window. Geneva sparkled below. Millions of people going about their lives, not knowing that in 72 hours everything would change. Admiral, tell me honestly, can we win? Kincaid was quiet for several seconds. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of decades spent preparing for a war she hoped would never come. We can make them regret starting this fight. Whether that counts as winning depends on how many of us are still alive when it's over. And if I don't give the speech, if I refuse to activate the Ghost Protocol, then the hegemony kills every human being in the galaxy, and we die as a species that chose peace even when it meant extinction. Sarah turned to face her. And if I do give the speech, Kincaid's smile was cold and sharp. Then they learn why humanity spent 50 years pretending to be weak. They learn what we really look like when we stop being civilized. She placed a small device on Sarah's desk, a communicator, military grade, encrypted beyond anything the hegemony could crack. If you decide to stay and give the speech, use this after. If you survive, it will guide you to an evacuation point. If you don't, Kincaid paused. If you don't know that your sacrifice won't be wasted. The Admiral turned to leave, then stopped at the door. For what it's worth, Ambassador, I think you made the right choice. Trying peace first. My family died on Kepler 442b, my husband, my daughters. But they died believing in your dream of a galaxy where we could talk instead of fight. That has to count for something. Then she was gone. Sarah sat alone in her office as darkness fell over Geneva. The speech glowed on her terminal, the words that would change everything. She thought about the families on Kepler 442b, the colonists who had trusted humanity's diplomats to keep them safe. The children who would never grow up because Sarah had failed to make the hegemony listen. She thought about the 847 people being evacuated to secret locations. Warriors and scientists who had spent 50 years preparing for a war they hoped would never come, sleeping in the dark places between stars, waiting for permission, waiting for her. Sarah began to practice the speech, every word, every pause, every inflection. If this was truly the end of peaceful humanity, she would make sure the galaxy remembered what they had thrown away, and she would make sure they understood what was coming next. Outside, the stars began to appear, cold and distant and uncaring. Somewhere among them, 340 hegemony warships were preparing to jump. Humanity's time for talking was almost over. The energy weapons fired. The screen went white, then black. Across the galaxy, in the 12,000 star systems on every ship, in every station, in every settled world, the transmission ended the same way, with silence, with darkness, with the knowledge that humanity's greatest diplomat had just died trying one last time to prevent a war. What they did not know was that Sarah Mitchell's death was the key that unlocked something far worse than war. It was permission. In the depths of the Oort cloud, 50,000 astronomical units from Earth's dying sun, something stirred in the darkness. The battleship Humanity's Wrath had been drifting for 20 years. Dark running, all systems in minimal power mode, crew in cryogenic suspension. Waiting, always waiting, until now. Admiral Rachel Kincaid's cryopod hissed open. Freezing mist spilled across the deck. Her lungs burned with that first breath after 20 years of chemical sleep. The neural interface attached to her spine fed information directly into her brain. Mission status, fleet position. Time elapsed, 20 years, 4 months, 17 days. She had gone to sleep the day after her husband and daughters died on Kepler 442b. The day after the hegemony enslaved 12,000 colonists and broadcast their suffering across human space as a warning. The day she stopped believing in peace and started believing in vengeance. Kincaid pulled herself from the pod. Her muscles screamed, 20 years in cryo left you weak. But the pod had been running therapeutic stimulation protocols the entire time. She would recover. Fast. Around her 233 other pods were opening. 233 other officers and crew members waking from their long sleep. Each one chosen. Each one trained. Each one carrying the same rage she did. "Admiral on deck," someone called out, voice rough from disuse. Kincaid waved them off. There was no time for ceremony. "Status report, all stations." The responses came in crisp and professional. These were not fresh recruits. These were veterans who had volunteered for a mission that might never happen, who had said goodbye to everyone they loved and climbed into sleeping pods with no guarantee they would ever wake up. "Reactor at minimal standby. Bringing primary systems online now. Weapons charged and ready. All railgun systems operational. Shield generators at full capacity. Energy signature suppressed. Communications receiving the activation code. Confirmed authentication. The signal came from Ambassador Sarah Mitchell." Kincaid closed her eyes. Sarah had done it. Given the speech. Activated Ghost Protocol, which meant Sarah was almost certainly dead. How long ago? Transmission timestamp shows 47 minutes. Earth is under full invasion. Estimated casualties exceed 2 billion. 2 billion in less than an hour. Bring them all systems to combat readiness. Deploy the fleet. The bridge lights came on in sequence. Red emergency lighting giving way to white operational illumination. Holographic displays materialized in the air. Tactical overlays. Fleet positions. Enemy tracking data that had been accumulating for 20 years. Outside the viewport, space erupted with light. 234 battleships came alive simultaneously, each one identical to humanity's wrath, each one 4 times the size of a hegemony flagship, each one powered by fusion reactors that could output 2,400 terawatts of raw energy. The hegemony's most powerful ships maxed out at 847 terawatts. One human battleship could match 3 of theirs, and humanity had 234. "Ma'am," her tactical officer said quietly, "we're also reading 412 destroyers and 896 support vessels. 1,542 ships total, hidden for 50 years in the darkness between stars. Waiting for this moment." Kincaid brought up the fleet-wide communications channel. Every ship, every commander, every soul who had sacrificed their old lives for this. "This is Admiral Rachel Kincaid to all Ghost Fleet units. You know why we're here. You know what we've lost. The hegemony thought humanity was weak because we chose diplomacy over war. They killed our families to prove it. They enslaved our children. They laughed at our peace treaties." She paused, let her words sink in. "Today, they learned the truth. We are not weak. We were being patient. We are not cowards. We were being kind. We gave them 30 years to accept peace. They chose violence. Now they get to see what happens when humanity stops being patient, when we stop being kind." Kincaid pulled up the tactical display, showed every hegemony military installation within 100 light years, bases, shipyards, command centers, all cataloged, all mapped, all vulnerable. Phase 2 begins now. We have 47 targets in 12 star systems. Each operation is timed to the second. Each strike is designed for maximum impact and 0 human casualties. We are not here to conquer territory. We are here to break their will to fight. She looked at the faces on her screen. Men and women who had become ghosts for humanity's survival. Remember what we were taught. Remember why we're here. We are not the humans who build schools and hospitals. We are the humans who protect the ones who do. And when someone threatens our builders, our teachers, our children, Kincaid's voice dropped to something cold and final. We remind the galaxy why humanity survived every extinction event Earth ever threw at us. Why we climbed to the top of the food chain and stayed there. Why predators learned to fear the apes who learned to throw stones. She activated the fleet-wide tactical overlay. All ships, execute Phase 2. Show them what human warfare looks like when we stop pretending to be civilized. The Ghost Fleet vanished into slipstream, 1,542 ships moving in perfect coordination. Heading for targets the hegemony thought were safe. 6 weeks later, Commander Vex stood in the war room of his flagship staring at reports that made no sense. 6 weeks ago, the hegemony had achieved its greatest victory. Earth destroyed. The human military scattered. Their civilian population reduced from 8 billion to less than 400 million scattered refugees. The human problem had been solved, except it hadn't. Read it again, Vex ordered. His intelligence officer, a young Kothvar, who had earned his position through 300 combat drops, activated the holographic display. Kepler Station, Research Facility, population 437 hegemony citizens, 23 military, 414 scientific personnel. Vex nodded. He knew the station. Remote, lightly defended, useful for studying captured human technology. At 0600 hours, local time station sensors detected 3 ships entering the system. Unknown configuration, matte black hulls, no identification transponders. Patrol Squadron 17 was dispatched to investigate. 23 warships, Vex said, more than enough to handle pirates or scavengers. Patrol Squadron 17 has not reported in. No wreckage detected. No emergency beacons, no final transmissions. Vex felt something he had not felt in 200 years of military service. Unease. They sent a battle group. Yes, sir. Battle Group 42, 67 ships, 8,000 personnel, standard search and rescue protocols. The hologram shifted to show what the battle group had found. Kepler Station intact. Docking bay open. Life support functioning. But every single hegemony citizen aboard was dead. Not destroyed in battle, not killed by explosions or weapons fire. Executed. The medical analysis shows precision kills, the intelligence officer continued. His voice had gone quiet. Professional. The voice of someone reporting facts they wished were not real. Energy weapons to vital organs. No torture. No unnecessary damage. Time of death suggests the operation took approximately 6 hours from initial breach to final kill. 6 hours to clear an entire station. Yes, sir. And sir, there's more. Human ships were still docked when our battle group arrived. 3 vessels, just sitting there, waiting. Vex leaned forward, waiting. They did not attempt to flee. They did not power weapons. They transmitted a single message on all frequencies, then entered slipstream and vanished. Show me the message. The hologram changed. A human woman appeared. Lean, hard, military bearing, despite the lack of insignia on her black combat armor. Behind her, the bodies of Kepler Station's crew were stacked in the main corridor. Organized, deliberate, a message written in corpses. To the Hegemony Council, the woman began. Her voice was calm, professional, like a teacher explaining a simple concept to slow students. I am Admiral Rachel Kincaid of the Human Ghost Fleet. You killed our diplomats, so you will deal with our soldiers instead. She gestured to the bodies behind her. You have been studying technology from our peaceful colonies. You thought you understood human capabilities. You were wrong. The humans you destroyed were farmers and scientists and teachers. We are something else entirely. Kincaid pulled out a data pad, read from it like she was reporting quarterly earnings. Kepler Station personnel, 437 hegemony citizens, military value minimal, scientific value minimal, threat to human survivors eliminated, time required for operations 6 hours, human casualties 0. She looked directly into the camera, directly at everyone who would ever watch this recording. You wanted to see what humans are really like. These bodies are your first lesson. We are not the species you fought before. We are not interested in peace talks or surrender negotiations. We are not going to warn you before we attack. We are not going to show mercy to prisoners. Kincaid stepped closer to the camera, close enough that Vex could see the absolute absence of doubt in her eyes. You made us this way. For 30 years, our diplomats begged you to stop killing our people. You laughed at them. You called us weak. You said we were cowards because we preferred words to weapons. You taught us that mercy is weakness. Her smile was colder than the void between stars. Lesson learned. From now on, every interaction between humans and the hegemony will be a military action. You will not receive warnings. You will not receive quarter. You will not receive burials. She turned and walked toward the camera until her face filled the screen. Phase 1 was reconnaissance. We wanted to see how you fight when you think you are safe. Phase 2 begins now. We are going to show you how humans fight when we stop pretending to be civilized. The transmission ended. Vex stood in silence. Around him, his command staff waited for orders. For the first time in his military career, he had no idea what to say. Send a message to High Command, but he finally managed. Tell them the humans are not extinct. Tell them something else survived. Something worse. But High Command was already receiving reports. From across hegemony space, the same pattern was emerging. Human ships appearing at military bases, supply depots, communication arrays, research stations. Always the same tactics. Fast, efficient, deadly. Complete destruction of the target, then disappearance before reinforcements could arrive. And always the same ending. 0 human casualties. On the lunar far side, in a facility that officially did not exist, General Nathaniel Cross watched the operations unfold across 12 star systems. 54 years old, career intelligence officer. He had spent 30 years mapping every hegemony installation, learning their patrol schedules, identifying their weaknesses. 30 years of patience, of waiting, of building files on an enemy that thought humanity was too primitive to be a threat. The holographic display showed real-time data from all 47 Phase 2 targets. Target 1 Murthani Shipyard. Status destroyed. Enemy casualties 2,347. Human casualties 0. Target 2 Kathvar Military Academy. Status destroyed. Enemy casualties 8,912. Human casualties 0. Target 3 Verdani Command Center. Status destroyed. Enemy casualties 5,623. Human casualties 0. The pattern repeated across every target. Overwhelming human victory. Perfect tactical execution. Not a single Ghost Fleet casualty. Circuit Sir, his aide said, Lieutenant Marcus Webb, 28 years old, brilliant analyst, handpicked for this operation 5 years ago. We're getting confirmation codes from all strike teams. Phase 2 primary objectives complete. Secondary targets identified and locked. Casualty estimates. Hegemony 47,612 confirmed. Civilian percentage 0. All targets were military or strategic infrastructure. Cross nodded. That had been a hard rule. No civilian casualties, no matter how much easier it would be to simply obliterate population centers. Humanity would not become what the hegemony claimed they were. Barbarians, savages, monsters. They would be something more precise, more terrible. Professional killers who chose their targets carefully. Begin Phase 3. I want the hegemony to understand that we know everything about them. Their supply lines, their communication networks, their genetic vulnerabilities. Webb hesitated. Sir, Phase 3 includes the biological weapons. Once we deploy those, there's no going back. Cross turned from the display, looked his aide in the eyes. The hegemony enslaved 12,000 human children on Kepler 442b. They broadcast images of those children being worked to death in mining operations. They did this to break our spirit, to prove that we were weak. He pulled up images on his personal display. Children, human children, starving, beaten, dying. We gave them 30 years to stop. They laughed. Now we show them what happens when you hurt human children. When you make us choose between our morality and our survival. Webb still looked uncertain. General, with respect, some of these weapons are designed to cause prolonged suffering. The nanophage, the hive mind disruptors, the paralytic nerve agents. They're not just going to kill, they're going to torture. I know. Is that who we want to be? Cross was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled up another file. Medical records from the first hegemony attacks on human colonies. Images that made Webb turn away. We didn't want to be anything except neighbors in this galaxy. We wanted to trade, to learn, to build something beautiful together. The hegemony made a different choice. They chose to see our desire for peace as weakness, our restraint as cowardice. He closed the file. Phase 3 proceeds as planned. But Marcus, I want you to log everything, every weapon we deploy, every casualty we inflict, every moment we choose cruelty over mercy. Future generations need to know what we became. They need to understand the cost of survival. And if history judges us monsters, then at least there will be humans alive to judge us. That's more than the hegemony planned to leave. Cross activated the Phase 3 protocols. Across the Ghost Fleet, specialist units received their orders. Captain Elena Reyes and her Reaper teams would target the Kothvar warrior caste, challenge their champions, break their morale by proving that human soldiers could defeat their finest fighters in single combat. The Shadow units would deploy cyber warfare packages, EDI viruses designed to infiltrate hegemony networks and turn their own technology against them. The Plague Doctor teams would release biological agents tailored to each species, not designed to kill quickly, but to cause maximum psychological impact. And the Mindbreakers would deploy electromagnetic weapons against the hive-minded species, severing their collective consciousness, leaving individuals trapped alone in their own minds for the first time in their evolutionary history. Cruelty as strategy, suffering as deterrent, not because humanity wanted to inflict pain, but because the hegemony had taught them that nothing else worked. Sir, the Webb said quietly, there's a message coming in on Ghost Protocol, secure channels, maximum encryption. It's from Deep Space Carrier Prometheus. Cross felt his blood go cold. Prometheus, the flagship of humanity's most classified asset, the ship commanded by a man who had been declared dead 50 years ago. Put it through, private channel. The holographic display shifted. A face appeared. 73 years old, but enhanced with military augmentations that made him look 60. Hair gray, eyes cold. The face of someone who had sacrificed everything for a war he hoped would never come. General James Mitchell, Sarah Mitchell's older brother. 73 years old now, though military augmentations made him look 60. The man who had volunteered for Ghost Protocol in 2047 at age 23, been declared killed in action and spent the next 50 years building humanity's doomsday weapon in the darkness between stars. Nathaniel, James said. His voice was rough, tired. I just watched the recording of my sister's execution. Cross had no words. What could you say to a man who had just watched his sister die because she activated the contingency he had spent half a century preparing? Phase 2 reports are impressive, James continued. 47 targets, 0 human casualties. You've done exactly what we trained for. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet. James pulled up a tactical display. I'm looking at our long-range sensors. The hegemony is not collapsing. They're regrouping, consolidating their fleets, preparing for a major offensive against any human position they can find. We anticipated that Phase 3 will break their coordination, make them too afraid to mass their forces. It won't be enough. James's expression hardened. They still outnumber us 10 to 1. They still control half the galaxy. And now they know we exist. They know we're not extinct. They're going to throw everything they have at finding and destroying the Ghost Fleet. Cross leaned forward. What are you suggesting, sir? I'm suggesting we stop holding back. Phase 2 and 3 were designed to be surgical, precise. But surgical strikes don't win wars of extermination. And make no mistake, that's what this is. The hegemony will not stop until every human is dead or enslaved. Sir, if we escalate to total war, we already did, the moment they burned Earth, the moment they killed 2.3 billion of us in 72 hours, the moment they executed my sister on a broadcast to the entire galaxy. James's hands clenched into fists. I have been preparing for this war for 50 years, Nathaniel. I gave up my identity, my family, my entire life. Sarah spent 30 years trying to prove that peace could work. She believed in diplomacy right up until the moment they killed her. And you know what? She was right to try. She was right to hope. But she's dead now, and hope died with her. So what do? We show them what humanity looks like when we stop hoping, when we stop trying to be better than our ancestors, when we stop pretending that we're anything other than the most efficient predators this galaxy has ever seen. Cross felt a chill run down his spine. You want to activate Phase 4. Not want Nathaniel, need. The hegemony has to learn that there are consequences for genocide, that you cannot kill billions of humans and walk away, that there is a price for choosing war over peace. Phase 4 is extinction level, species-specific bioweapons, planetary sterilization protocols. We'll be killing billions. They killed billions of us first. The two men stared at each other across light years of space. Two soldiers who had given everything to protect humanity, now deciding how much of humanity's soul they were willing to sacrifice to ensure its survival. Finally, Cross spoke. If we do this, we can never go back. We'll be the monsters every species tells stories about. The humans who responded to genocide with genocide. James nodded slowly. I know. Sarah tried to save humanity's soul. I'm trying to save its body. History can decide which of us was right, but only if there are humans alive to write that history. He pulled up a file. Authorization codes. Final approval for Phase 4 operations. I'm sending you the activation sequence. You'll need to confirm with Admiral Kincaid and the other Ghost Fleet commanders. This is not an order. It's a choice. We all have to agree. We all have to live with it. Cross looked at the codes. The point of no return. The moment humanity stopped being the species that tried peace first and became the species that showed no mercy. I'll convene a command council. But James, there's something you should know. Something that changes everything. What? Your sister, Sarah, she's alive. For the first time since the transmission began, emotion crossed James Mitchell's face. Shock, disbelief, hope. That's impossible. I watched her die. The energy weapons hit her, but there were resistance fighters in the building. They got her to an underground medical facility before the hegemony could confirm the kill. She's in critical condition. Coma, barely clinging to life, but she's alive. James sat down heavily. 73 years old and suddenly looking every year of it. Does she know about the Ghost Fleet, about what we're doing? Not yet, she's unconscious. The doctors say if she wakes up, it won't be for months. James was quiet for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was different, older, more tired. Postpone Phase 4, keep executing Phase 3. Break their military, destroy their infrastructure, but don't cross the line into mass extinction. Not yet. Why the change, sir? Because Sarah believed we were better than this. She died, almost died, at trying to prove that humanity could choose peace even when it cost us everything. If she wakes up and finds out we committed genocide in her name, he trailed off. She'll never forgive us, Cross finished. She'll never forgive me, and maybe she'd be right not to, but I owe her the chance to make that argument. I owe her the chance to try one more time to find a better way. James looked directly at Cross. Execute Phase 3 with maximum efficiency. Make the hegemony understand that they are losing this war. But give me time. Give Sarah time. If she wakes up, if she recovers, maybe she can find a path that doesn't require us to become the monsters we're trying to defeat. And if she doesn't wake up, James's expression hardened back into the cold mask of the warrior he had been forced to become. Then we activate Phase 4, and we make sure the galaxy never forgets what happens when someone kills a Mitchell. The transmission ended. Cross sat alone in his command center, surrounded by holographic displays showing the systematic destruction of hegemony assets. 47 targets destroyed, 47,000 enemy casualties, 0 human losses. Perfect tactical execution. But somewhere in the ruins of Washington, D.C., Sarah Mitchell lay in a coma. The woman who had spent her entire adult life trying to prevent exactly this kind of war. The woman who might wake up to find that her final message had unleashed something she never intended. Cross pulled up the Phase 4 protocols, read through the species-specific extinction weapons, the nanophage that would rewrite Murthani DNA, the nerve agents that would paralyze Kuthvar warriors while leaving their minds intact, the electromagnetic pulses that would sever Zephyrian hive minds permanently. Weapons designed not just to kill, but to make death a mercy compared to what came before it. He closed the file. Not yet, he said to the empty room. Not while Sarah Mitchell still breathes. We owe her that much. Outside, the Ghost Fleet continued its war. Precise, efficient, deadly, but for now, still human enough to hope. Captain Elena Reyes stood in the central arena of Cathar Prime surrounded by 10,000 Kothvar warriors who had come to watch her die. She was 1.7 meters tall, 68 kilograms. Human. Across the sand floor, Warlord Thex Kane waited, 2.4 meters of muscle and bone, and 340 kilograms of pure killing force. The greatest Kothvar fighter in 1,000 years. A warrior who had never lost a single combat in 2 centuries of challenges. The Kothvar believed that strength proved worth. That honor came through combat. That the strong deserved to rule and the weak deserved to die. Elena had studied their culture for 30 years, learned every fighting form in their martial codex, memorized every ritual, every weakness, every psychological trigger that would make them angry enough to make mistakes. Today she would turn their own warrior culture against them. Human Thex Kane's voice boomed across the arena. You challenge me for the honor of your dead species. This is brave. This is foolish. I will make your death quick. Elena did not respond. She simply dropped into a fighting stance that Thex Kane would recognize. Form 8 of 47 from the Kothvar Codex. The striking mantis. A defensive stance that invited aggression. Thex Kane's eyes widened. Surprise. Then rage. You mock our traditions by learning our forms. No, Elena's voice was cold, calm. I honor your traditions by proving I can master them better than you. The warlord charged. The duel lasted 6 hours and 14 minutes. Elena did not try to match Thex Kane's strength. That would be suicide. Instead, she used what humans had always used to defeat stronger opponents. Intelligence. Adaptation. The ability to learn, encounter, and survive. Thex Kane came at her with Form 212, the crushing boulder. Elena recognized it 3 moves in and shifted to Form 581, the flowing stream, redirecting his momentum, using his mass against him. The warlord stumbled, recovered, switched tactics. For 6 hours they fought. Thex Kane using every technique in the Kothvar martial tradition. Elena countering each one with combinations the Codex had never imagined. Human Krav Maga merged with Kothvar forms. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu adapted to alien physiology. Boxing, Muay Thai. Every fighting style humanity had developed over millennia of war. The Kothvar warriors watching fell silent. They had expected their champion to crush this small human within minutes. Instead, they were witnessing something impossible. A human fighting their greatest warrior to a standstill. At the 4-hour mark, Elena drew first blood, a strike to Thex Kane's breathing aperture. Precise. Surgical. The warlord staggered back, yellow ichor dripping from his face. At 5 hours, she broke his left arm. A joint lock that the Kothvar Codex said was unbreakable. Except Elena had spent 3 decades studying Kothvar anatomy. She knew exactly where to apply pressure, exactly how much force to use. At 6 hours, Thex Kane fell to his knees. Elena stood over him, exhausted, bleeding from a dozen wounds, but standing. The warlord looked up at her with something between respect and horror. Who are you? He gasped. Lena's response was quiet, sad, final. I am what you made us. You taught us that only strength matters, that the weak deserve to die, that mercy is weakness and cruelty is strength. She knelt beside him, close enough that only he could hear her next words. You were wrong. Strength is choosing not to kill when you have the power to do so. We tried to teach you them for 30 years. You wouldn't listen. Thex Kane's breathing was labored, failing. So we became stronger than you, not because we wanted to, because you forced us. The great warlord died with his eyes open, staring at the human who had defeated him. Elena stood, faced the 10,000 Kothvar warriors watching from the stands. Your champion is dead, defeated by a human who learned your ways and mastered them. This is what happens when you underestimate us. This is what happens when you mistake our desire for peace as inability to fight. She walked toward the exit. Every Kothvar warrior in the arena made way. They had seen their god bleed, their unbeatable champion fall, and they would never forget. Across hegemony space, similar operations were unfolding with surgical precision. In the data centers of the Verdani forest worlds, Shadow Unit operatives deployed AI viruses into the communication networks. Code that learned, adapted, spread like digital cancer through every system it touched. The viruses did not simply destroy data, they corrupted it, made hegemony ships receive false orders, made supply convoys route to empty space, made targeting computers identify friendly vessels as enemies. Within 48 hours, 30% of the hegemony fleet was firing on itself. 23,000 ships destroyed, not by human weapons, by their own confused and compromised systems. The hegemony tried to shut down their networks, go back to manual controls. But the viruses had already spread too far, embedded too deep. They would be finding corrupted code in their systems for decades, if they survived that long. On the ocean worlds of the Myrthani home system, plague doctor teams released the agricultural virus into the water currents. The virus was a masterpiece of human biological engineering, microscopic, invisible, designed to target one specific genetic sequence. The proteins that Myrthani biology needed to process nutrients from their primary food crops. The crops looked normal, tasted normal, grew in abundance, but they provided zero nutrition. Week 1, nobody noticed. The Myrthani continued eating, continued living their lives. The virus spread silently through the ocean currents, reaching every farm, every feeding ground, every population center. Week 4, the first symptoms appeared. Weakness, exhaustion, children stopping their growth cycles. Week 8, the Myrthani realized what was happening. Their crops had been poisoned, not to kill them quickly, but to make them starve while feeling full, to watch their bodies waste away while their stomachs felt satisfied. Week 12, 340 million were dead. The number would reach 8.9 billion before it stopped. Admiral Rachel Kincaid watched the casualty reports from her quarters aboard Humanity's Wrath. Each death logged, each life ended by a weapon she had personally authorized. Her family photo sat on the desk. Her husband, her 2 daughters, all killed in the initial invasion of Kepler 442b. She had deployed the agricultural virus for them, in their memory, to make the hegemony feel the same helpless horror of watching loved ones die and being unable to stop it. But revenge did not feel like she thought it would. It felt empty, hollow, like she was becoming something her daughters would not recognize. Her hands shook as she filed the report. 8.9 billion Myrthani, mostly civilians, mostly families just like hers. The difference was her family had not chosen war. They had been colonists, farmers, peaceful. But these Myrthani civilians, they had allowed their government to commit genocide. They had benefited from hegemony expansion. They had looked the other way while human children were enslaved. Did that make them guilty? Did that justify what she was doing to them? Kincaid did not know anymore. She just knew she could not stop. In the hive colonies of the Zephyrian collective mindbreaker teams deployed electromagnetic pulse weapons at precisely calculated frequencies, 847 gigahertz, targeting the specific wavelength the Zephyrian neural networks use to maintain their collective consciousness. The pulses severed the mental connections instantly. For the first time in their evolutionary history, individual Zephyrians found themselves alone in their own minds, cut off from the comforting presence of billions of other thoughts. Trapped in a silence they had no words to describe. The isolation drove them insane within 47 hours. But the mindbreaker teams had prepared for that too. Drugs that prevented suicide, medical interventions that kept the bodies alive even as the minds shattered. 6.1 billion Zephyrians lived in conscious madness, aware but broken, screaming in frequencies humans could not hear, begging for deaths they could not achieve. The cruelty was calculated, designed, a message written in suffering that said, "This is what you get for hurting us." General Nathaniel Cross logged every detail, every casualty, every moment of calculated torture disguised as warfare. Future generations would need to know what humanity had become, what they had chosen when survival required them to become monsters. The hegemony capital. Emergency session. High Commander Zek-7 floated in his observation pod watching the casualty reports scroll across holographic displays. Numbers that grew larger every hour, every day. every week. 6 weeks into Ghost Fleet operations, and the hegemony was falling apart. 15 billion casualties, military and civilian, across all 12 member species, every system under attack, every world compromised, and the humans had reported zero losses. This is not war, Counselor Mir-7 said. The Mirthani representative's voice came through the translator as bubbles of anguish. This is systematic extermination. They are not trying to defeat us. They are trying to make us suffer. General Vex stood. The proud Kothvar warrior looked older than his 300 years. Defeated. Our warriors refuse to fight. They have seen Warlord Thex Khan fall to a human female half his size. They have seen their champions die. Morale is at 68% decline across all combat units. We are losing the will to resist. The Zephyrian representative did not speak. Could not speak. The electromagnetic attacks had severed their connection to the collective. They sat alone, silent, a living example of what the humans could do. We must surrender, Mir-7 said. Send peace delegations, offer reparations, anything to make them stop. We have sent 17 separate surrender offers, Zek-7 replied. All ignored, or worse. The human Admiral Kincaid responded to our last attempt with a message. He played the recording. Kincaid's face filled the display. Cold, professional, empty of everything except determination. You had 30 years to negotiate. You rejected 37 peace treaties. You killed our diplomats. You enslaved our children. And now you want to surrender because you are losing. Her laugh was bitter. We do not negotiate with species that refuse to negotiate. The time for peace ended when you burned Earth. What you are experiencing now is not war. It is consequences. The recording ended. Then what can we do? Mir-7 asked desperately. We are dying. Our children are starving. Our warriors are broken. Our fleets are firing on themselves. What do they want from us? Zek-7 looked at the casualty counter. 15 billion dead and rising. They want us to understand, to feel what they felt for 30 years. Helplessness, horror, the knowledge that no matter what you do, no matter how you beg, the killing will not stop. Vex sat down heavily. We created this. We turned the galaxy's most peaceful species into perfect killers. And now we reap what we have sown. Deep Space Carrier Prometheus. General James Mitchell watched the Phase 3 casualty reports with growing horror. 15 billion hegemony dead. Elena Reyes had broken the Kthivar warrior spirit. The shadow units had turned the hegemony's technology against them. The plague doctors had unleashed starvation on the Mirthani. The mindbreakers had driven the Zephyrians into madness. And 80 other species faced their own personalized nightmares. All of it authorized by him. All of it executed in his sister's name. Sarah, who had died trying to prevent exactly this kind of war. Except Sarah had not died. James pulled up the medical reports from the Washington, D.C. resistance cell. Sarah Mitchell. Critical condition. Severe injuries from energy weapons. Heart stopped for 4 minutes. Neurological damage significant but repairable. Current status coma. Estimated recovery time 3 to 6 months. If she recovered at all. James had been watching her vital signs for 6 weeks. Every day, hoping she would wake up. Every day dreading that she would. Because when Sarah woke up, she would learn what had been done in her name. She would see the casualty numbers, the torture, the systematic destruction of 12 species. She would see what her brother had become. The communication console chimed. Incoming message. Maximum priority. Ghost protocol encryption. General Cross's face appeared. James, we have a situation. The hegemony has started mass evacuations. They are abandoning outlying systems, consolidating their populations on their core worlds. They are preparing for Phase 4, James said quietly. They think we are going to exterminate them completely. Deploy planetary sterilization weapons. And James, Cross hesitated. They might be right. Admiral Kincaid is requesting authorization to activate Phase 4 protocols. She says Phase 3 is not enough, that we need to ensure the hegemony can never threaten humanity again. And what are the Phase 4 projections? Cross pulled up the simulations. Weapons designed to target specific genetic sequences. Nanophages that would rewrite Mirthani D, NA. Nerve agents that would paralyze Kthvar warriors while leaving their minds intact. Viral vectors that would sterilize Verdani reproductive systems. Complete. Total. Extinction. Estimated casualties 94.6 billion sentient beings. Time to deployment 96 hours. Human casualties 0. Probability of hegemony survival less than 1%. 94.6 billion. James closed his eyes. No. Sir, I said no. Deny Admiral Kincaid's request. Phase 4 is not authorized. James, with respect, Phase 3 is not working fast enough. The hegemony is adapting, regrouping. If we give them time, they will find a way to counterattack. Then we increase Phase 3 operations, deploy more specialist units, expand the cyber warfare, but we do not cross the line into genocide. Cross was quiet for a moment. Why the change? 6 weeks ago, you were ready to activate Phase 4. You said we needed to make the hegemony understand consequences. James pulled up Sarah's medical file, showed Cross the vital sign monitors, the slow but steady improvement in her neurological function. Because my sister is still alive, and when she wakes up, I need to be able to look her in the eyes and tell her that we did not become the monster she died trying to stop. She almost died, and she would have died believing we were better than this. We are better than this. We have to be. Otherwise, what was the point of 30 years of peace negotiations? What was the point of Sarah's entire life? Cross nodded slowly. I understand, but James, there is something else. Something you should know. What? Sarah is waking up. James felt his heart stop. When? The doctors say within the next 72 hours. Her brain activity has increased significantly in the last 48 hours. She is going to survive, and when she does, she is going to want answers. James looked at the casualty reports. 15 billion dead. Species-specific torture weapons. Systematic destruction designed for maximum suffering. All authorized by him. All done because he thought Sarah was dead. I need to see her as soon as she wakes up, before she learns what we have done. That might not be possible. The resistance cell is in Washington, D.C., deep in hegemony-occupied territory. Getting you there without compromising Prometheus's position would be, I don't care. Find a way. I need to talk to my sister. Cross was quiet for a long moment. There might be another option. We could bring her here. Medical evac. Get her to Prometheus, where we have better facilities. How long? Wow. 3 weeks, maybe 4, if she survives the transfer. Do it. And Nathaniel, one more thing. When Sarah wakes up, when she is strong enough to travel, I want you to show her everything. Every casualty report, every weapon deployment, every decision we made. She deserves to know the truth. All of it. That might break her, James. I know, but she is strong. Stronger than me. If anyone can find a way through this, it is her. James ended the transmission. Sat alone in his quarters aboard the ship that had been his home for 50 years. The ship he had commanded while his sister fought for peace. The ship he had used to plan a war she never wanted. Outside the viewport, stars burned cold and distant. Somewhere among them, Sarah Mitchell was waking from her coma. Coming back to a galaxy that had changed in ways she could never have imagined. Coming back to discover what humanity had become when she was not there to stop them. Washington, D.C., Resistance Medical Facility. Sarah Mitchell opened her eyes. Pain. Immediate and overwhelming. Her entire body felt like it was on fire. Nerve endings screaming, muscles torn, bones fractured. But she was alive. Ambassador, a voice, concerned, professional. Please do not try to move. You have been in a coma for 6 months. Your injuries were severe. 6 months, Sarah tried to speak. Her throat was raw, dry. The words came out as a whisper. What happened? The doctor, a young woman with exhausted eyes, hesitated. What do you remember? The transmission, the Kthvar soldiers, energy weapons. I thought you should have died. Your heart stopped for 4 minutes. We barely got you stabilized. The resistance fighters who pulled you from the UN building saved your life. Sarah closed her eyes, remembered the speech, the activation code, the signal that would wake the Ghost Fleet. Did it work? Did they receive the message? Another hesitation. Longer this time. Ambassador, there is a lot you need to know. The war, things have changed. Tell me. The doctor pulled up a news feed. Images flooded the display. Human warships, battles, hegemony installations burning, casualty reports. Sarah read the numbers. Her blood went cold. 15 billion hegemony casualties. 0 human losses. This cannot be right. This is genocide. This is Phase 3 of Ghost Protocol. The specialist units have been deploying weapons designed to... I know what Phase 3 is. Sarah's voice was hard, angry. I read the contingency files. Phase 3 was supposed to be targeted strikes against military assets, surgical operations to break hegemony coordination. The doctor pulled up more reports. The agricultural virus, the hive mind disruptors, the paralysis nerve agents. They expanded the operational parameters. General Mitchell authorized James, and Sarah tried to sit up. Pain lanced through her chest. My brother authorized this. He thought you were dead, Ambassador, the activation signal. Your death was supposed to be the trigger for unrestricted warfare. Sarah fell back against the bed, tears running down her face. What have we done? What have I done? You gave humanity a chance to survive. The Ghost Fleet has stopped the hegemony advance, saved millions of human refugees. Without Phase 3, we would all be dead or enslaved by now, at the cost of 15 billion lives. That is not survival. That is becoming exactly what they said we were. Monsters. The doctor was quiet. Finally, Sarah spoke again. Her voice was different now, harder, determined. I need to get to my brothers, to General Mitchell. Where is he? Deep Space Carrier Prometheus. 50,000 astronomical units from here. Ambassador, you are too weak to travel. The journey would kill you. Then it kills me, but I am not lying in this bed while humanity commits genocide in my name. Sarah forced herself to sit up, every movement agony, every breath torture. But she was Sarah Mitchell. She had spent 30 years fighting for peace. She had died for it, and she would be damned if she let her death become an excuse for the very war she had tried to prevent. Contact General Cross. Tell him I am coming. Tell him Sarah Mitchell has one more negotiation to conduct. With who? Sarah looked at the casualty reports. 15 billion dead. 94.6 billion more scheduled for Phase 4. With everyone. The hegemony, the Ghost Fleet, my brother, anyone who will listen. This war ends, one way or another. She stood, swayed, caught herself on the bed frame. And if I have to give one more speech to stop it, then that is what I will do. The doctor stared at her. Ambassador, you can barely stand. How do you expect to? I am Sarah Mitchell. I survived 30 years of failed negotiations. I survived being executed by the hegemony. I survived 6 months in a coma. She took one painful step toward the door, then another. I will survive this too, because someone has to. Someone has to remember that we were supposed to be better than this. Behind her, the casualty counter continued to climb. 15 billion, and still rising. But Sarah Mitchell was awake now, and she was going to stop this war, even if it killed her to do it. 3 weeks after Sarah Mitchell woke from her coma, she stood on the bridge of a stealth transport approaching Deep Space Carrier Prometheus. Her body still ached. The scars from the energy weapons formed a constellation across her chest and shoulders. The doctors had said she needed 6 more months of recovery before attempting space travel. She had given them 6 hours to prepare the ship. Through the viewport, Prometheus grew larger. 4.8 kilometers of human engineering. A ship so massive it had its own artificial gravity. A ship designed to destroy star systems. A ship commanded by her brother. Sarah had not seen James in 50 years. Not since he volunteered for Ghost Protocol. Not since his funeral. Not since she had spent 3 decades trying to achieve the peace he had spent 5 decades preparing to destroy. Ambassador, the pilot said quietly, General Mitchell is waiting for you in his private quarters. He requests you come alone. Sarah nodded. She had expected that. The transport docked. Sarah walked through corridors that felt more like a city than a ship. Crew members saluted as she passed. Their eyes held something between respect and fear. They knew who she was. the diplomat who had activated Ghost Protocol, the woman whose death had given them permission to become killers. Except she had not died. James's quarters were at the ship's center, protected, isolated. Sarah stood outside the door for a long moment, gathering strength. Then she pressed the entry chime. "Come in, Sarah." His voice, older than she remembered, tired, but still her brother's voice. The door opened. James Mitchell stood by the viewport, 73 years old. Military augmentations made him look 60, but his eyes looked 1,000 years old. Eyes that had watched 15 billion beings die. Eyes that had authorized weapons designed to maximize suffering. Eyes that were filling it with tears as he saw his sister alive. Sarah. He crossed the room in 3 strides, pulled her into an embrace, careful of her injuries, gentle despite decades of military conditioning. Sarah let him hold her. For a moment, they were just siblings again. James, who had taught her to ride a bike. Sarah, who had helped him study for exams. Before the hegemony, before the war, before they had become symbols of humanity's dual nature. Then Sarah pulled back. "Show me." James's face hardened. He knew what she meant. "Sarah, you just woke up. You need time to show me what you did in my name." James walked to his desk, activated the holographic display. Numbers appeared in the air between them. Phase 2, 47 targets destroyed. 47,612 enemy casualties. 0 human losses. Sarah said nothing. Phase 3 specialist operations across the 12 species. Elena Reyes killed warlord Thex Kane in single combat, broke HFY morale across all units. The display shifted, showed the agricultural virus spreading through Murthani oceans. Plague doctor teams deployed biological weapons, 8.9 billion Murthani dying of starvation. They feel full, but their bodies are wasting away. Sarah's hands clenched. Shadow units corrupted hegemony networks, made their fleets fire on themselves. 23,000 ships destroyed by friendly fire. Another shift, Zephyrians screaming silently. Mindbreaker teams severed the collective consciousness. 6.1 billion Zephyrians trapped alone in their own minds, going insane. Drugs prevent suicide. They will live in madness for decades. James pulled up the summary screen. Total Phase 3 casualties, 15 billion sentient beings, 78% civilian. Designed for maximum psychological impact. Designed to make them suffer. He closed the display, looked at his sister. "All authorized by me. All executed because I thought you were dead. All done in your name." Sarah was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was steady, cold. "You became monsters. We became survivors. You tortured billions of civilians. You designed weapons to cause prolonged agony. You turned war into cruelty for cruelty's sake. They killed 2.3 billion of us in 72 hours. James's control cracked. They enslaved children. They broadcast images of human suffering as entertainment. They laughed at your peace treaties for 30 years. So you became them. No, we became worse, more efficient, more thorough, more terrifying." Sarah walked to the viewport, looked out at the stars. "I spent 30 years trying to prove that humanity could choose peace even when it cost us everything. That we could be better than our violent past. That intelligence and compassion could defeat brutality." She turned back to James. "You spent 50 years proving the opposite. That when pushed, humanity becomes the most efficient killers in the galaxy. I did what I had to do to save our species, at the cost of our soul." Sarah gestured to the display. 15 billion deaths, most of them civilians who had no say in their government's choices. Children, families, people who were guilty only of being born the wrong species. James sat down heavily. "What would you have had me do?" Sarah let them kill every human die, out of the species that chose extinction over violence. "I would have had you remember what we were fighting for. Not just human survival, human values. The belief that we can be better than this. Those values died with you. Or so I thought." Sarah pulled up the casualty projections, the Phase 4 protocols. 94.6 billion, complete extinction of 12 species. That is what you were preparing. Before I knew you were alive. And that makes it acceptable. James looked at her, really looked at her, at the scars, the exhaustion, the weight of 30 years of failure written in every line of her face. No, he said quietly, it makes it necessary. There is a difference. There, because from where I stand, necessary and acceptable look the same. Both mean we choose survival over morality. Both mean we become what we hate. What do you want from me, Sarah? An apology, I cannot give you one. I would do it again to save humanity. I want you to stop. Sarah stepped closer. I want you to prove that my 30 years meant something, that humanity can still choose to be better. It is too late for that. We have already crossed the line. Well, and then we step back across it. We show the galaxy that even after everything, we still have a choice. James pulled up the Phase 4 activation codes. Admiral Kincaid is requesting permission to deploy extinction weapons. General Cross has the targeting data ready. Captain Reyes has specialist teams standing by. The entire Ghost Fleet is waiting for my order. He looked at Sarah. And you want me to tell them no. You want me to give the hegemony a chance after everything they did, after all we sacrificed. Yes. Wow, Sarah smiled, wanted in knowing. Because that is what humans do. We give one more chance, even when it is foolish, even when it costs us everything. Because hope is what separates us from the monsters. The War Council convened in Prometheus's main strategic center. Admiral Rachel Kincaid stood at attention. 46 years old, 20 years in cryosleep, 6 weeks of warfare that had killed 15 billion beings. She had not slept properly since waking up. General Nathaniel Cross appeared via hologram from Luna Base. 54 years old, 30 years of intelligence work, every hegemony casualty logged, every atrocity documented. Captain Elena Reyes joined from her stealth ship near Cathar Prime. 34 years old, hands that had killed Warlord Thex Khan, hands that still shook when she closed her eyes. And Sarah Mitchell, 52 years old, 6 months in a coma, scars that would never fully heal. The diplomat who had died for peace and come back to stop a genocide. James activated the central display. The number appeared in holographic letters 3 meters tall. 94.6 billion. This is the Phase 4 projection, James said. His voice was flat, professional. The voice of a general briefing his staff. Complete extinction of 12 hegemony species. Deployment, time 96 hours. Success probability 99.7%. He pulled up the weapon specifications. Nanophages, nerve agents, viral vectors, each designed for a specific species, each guaranteed to cause maximum suffering before death. Admiral Kincaid has requested authorization to proceed. She believes Phase 3 is insufficient to prevent hegemony resurgence. Kincaid stepped forward. With respect, General, the hegemony still outnumbers us. They are regrouping, consolidating. If we give them time, they will adapt. They will find our weaknesses, and they will try again. So your solution is extinction. My solution is survival, permanent, guaranteed. No hegemony left to threaten us ever again. Sarah spoke quietly, at the cost of 94.6 billion lives. They killed 2.3 billion of us. So we kill 40 times as many, and that makes us better than them. Kincaid's jaw tightened. It makes us a live ambassador, which is more than they plan to leave us. Cross's hologram flickered. I have been logging every casualty, every weapon deployment, every choice we made. The data is clear. Phase 3 has broken hegemony military effectiveness. They are offering surrender. Multiple delegations, reparations, territory, everything we could want. Everything except a guarantee they will not rebuild and try again in 50 years, Kincaid said. Nothing guarantees that except extinction. And if we commit genocide to prevent genocide, what have we become? Elena spoke for the first time. Her voice was quiet, haunted. I killed Warlord Thex Khan with my bare hands. I watched him die. I thought it would feel like justice. She looked at her hands. It felt like murder. Professional, necessary, but still murder. And if we proceed with Phase 4, we are not soldiers anymore. We are executioners, mass executioners. We are survivors, Kincaid insisted. We are monsters, Elena replied. Efficient monsters, but monsters nonetheless. The room fell silent. James looked at each of them, his commanders, his family, the people who had sacrificed everything to protect humanity. Sarah wants us to give them a choice. One final negotiation, surrender or extinction. They have been offering surrender for weeks, Kincaid said. Why should we believe them now? Because I will deliver the terms personally, Sarah said, face to face with a device that can activate Phase 4 with a single signal. They will see that we have the power. They will understand what happens if they refuse. And if they try to kill you, Sarah smiled, then you activate Phase 4 and wipe them out. But at least we will have tried peace one last time. Kincaid shook her head. This is madness. We have them beaten. Why risk everything on another negotiation? Because that is who we are. Sarah stepped closer to the display. The massive number hovered above her. 94.6 billion. That is not a casualty report. That is every child on 12 different worlds. Every parent, every dreamer, every person who had nothing to do with their government's choices. She looked around the room. The hegemony made us into killers. We became very good at it. But if we cross this line, if we commit extinction on this scale, we can never go back. We become the species that responded to genocide with 40 times the genocide. That is our legacy, forever. James was quiet for a long moment, all in favor of Ambassador Mitchell's proposal. Sarah raised her hand. Elena raised hers, slowly, reluctantly. Cross's hologram raised its hand. Kincaid stood alone, outvoted, defeated. I want it on record, she said quietly, that I believe this is a mistake. That we are risking humanity's future on one more failed negotiation. That the ambassador's idealism will get us all killed. Noted, James said. He pulled up the navigation charts. The hegemony capital world. Sarah, you have 72 hours. I will prepare the final choice device. 2 signals, one for peace, one for extinction. You deliver the terms. They choose. He looked at his sister. But Sarah, if they refuse, if they try to harm you, if they show any sign of treachery, you activate Phase 4 and finish it. I know. James nodded. Then God help us all, because history will not. 2 days later, Sarah Mitchell's small diplomatic shuttle descended toward the hegemony capital. The planet was beautiful. Blue oceans, green continents, cities that glowed like jewels against the night. Billions of beings going about their lives, not knowing that a single human woman carried their fate in a device the size of her palm. The shuttle landed in the central plaza. The city was empty, evacuated. Only the final council members remained. Sarah walked alone through the abandoned streets. Her footsteps echoed off silent building songs. Above her, human warships maintained orbit. 234 battleships ready to deploy extinction weapons at her signal. The government complex loomed ahead. Once grand, now desperate. The last refuge of 12 species facing annihilation. Sarah entered. High Commander Zek 7 floated in his observation pod at the head of the council table. The proud Murthani leader looked ancient, defeated, his aquatic form barely moving. General Vex sat beside him, the fierce Kuthvar warrior who had called humans weak. Now broken, his species champions dead, his armies refusing to fight. Counselor Mir 7 represented the Murthani civilians, 8.9 billion of her people dying, starving with full stomachs. 11 others, each the last voice of their species, each knowing they were one decision away from extinction. Sarah placed the device on the table. This communicator links directly to the human ghost fleet. It has 2 signals. I can send one or the other, not both. She activated the display, showed them the 2 options in holographic clarity. Signal 1, immediate cessation of all hostilities. Your species survive under human supervision. No military, no weapons, no interstellar travel, constant monitoring. You become dependents in your own space. But you live. Your children live. Your cultures continue. Signal 2, Phase 4 activation. Extinction protocols deploy within the hour. Species-specific bioweapons. 94.6 billion casualties. Complete sterilization of your core worlds. Within 6 months, your species become extinct. Nothing remains but records in human archives. The council members stared at the device, at the choice, at the human who had come alone to deliver it. Zek-7 spoke first. His voice came through the translator as broken bubbles. After everything you have done to us, after 15 billion dead, after torture and suffering and systematic extermination, you offer us mercy. Sarah met his eyes, all four of them. I offer you a choice, the same choice you refused to give us for 30 years. Why? Because that is what humans do. We give one more chance. Vex leaned forward. The warrior who had called diplomacy weakness. We destroyed your homeworld. We killed billions of your people. We enslaved your children. We laughed at your peace treaties. His voice was rough, ashamed. Why would you show us mercy? We never showed you. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke. Not as a diplomat, as a human. Because if I press the second signal, if I commit genocide on that scale, I become exactly what you said we were. Monsters. And 15 billion deaths already weigh on my soul. I will not add 94 billion more. She looked around the table. My brother has built weapons that can kill all of you. Efficiently. Completely. He did this because he loves humanity. Because he will do anything to protect our species. And if I press that button, he will carry out the extinction. Without hesitation. Without mercy. But you are asking him not to. I am asking you to give me a reason not to choose survival over pride, to accept the consequences of your actions, to live under human rule rather than die with honor intact. Mer-7 spoke through sobs. Our children are dying, starving, suffering. You did this to us. Your government did this to you by choosing war, by refusing peace, by forcing humanity to become something we never wanted to be. Sarah pulled up the historical record. 37 rejected treaties, 89 dismissed proposals, 3 ignored surrenders. We tried. For 30 years we tried. We offered everything. You took it all and demanded more. You saw our kindness as weakness, our restraint as cowardice, our hope as foolishness. She closed the display. So we stopped being kind. We stopped showing restraint. We stopped hoping for peace. And this is the result. 15 billion dead, 12 species on the edge of extinction. And now you ask us to surrender completely. I ask you to choose life under our terms, under our rules, but life nonetheless. Zek-7 floated closer to the device. If we refuse, then I press the second button, and my brother ensures that no species in this galaxy ever makes the mistake of underestimating humanity again. Your extinction becomes a lesson written in 94.6 billion graves. The council members looked at each other. 12 species, 12 civilizations, 12 chances to continue, or 12 extinctions. How long do we have? Zek-7 asked. Sarah looked at the device. You have until I run out of patience. The silence stretched, minutes passing like hours. Finally, Vex stood, the proud warrior, the general who had called humans weak. I vote for life, even life under human rule, even as slaves. Better to survive in shame than die with honor. One by one, the others agreed, some weeping, some silent, but all defeated. Zek-7 was the last. We surrender, completely, unconditionally. Our species, our worlds, our futures, all of it, we place ourselves under human authority. He looked at Sarah. May history judge which of us was the greater monster, the species that started this war, or the species that showed mercy at the end. Sarah pressed the first button. Across the galaxy, Ghost Fleet units received the stand-down order. Phase 4 canceled. The extinction weapons remain sealed. 94.6 billion beings would live to see tomorrow. Sarah stood. You will receive formal terms within 48 hours. Compliance is not optional. Resistance will be met with immediate military action. The age of hegemony dominance is over. The age of human supervision has begun. She walked toward the exit, paused at the door. And Zek-7 history will not judge us. We will have to judge ourselves every day for the rest of our lives with the weight of what we became crushing our souls. What did you become, Ambassador? Sarah looked back one last time. We became what you forced us to become. The question is whether we can find our way back. Sarah's broadcast reached every inhabited system in the galaxy. She stood alone in frame. No flags, no symbols, just a scarred woman who had died for peace and come back to stop a genocide. I am Ambassador Sarah Mitchell of Earth. 6 months ago, the hegemony destroyed my homeworld because they believed humans were too weak to defend themselves. Today, the hegemony has surrendered unconditionally. She paused. Let that sink in. Humanity tried peace for 30 years. We offered friendship, technology, trade, alliance. Every offer was rejected, every treaty dismissed, every surrender ignored. The hegemony saw our desire for peace as weakness, our restraint as cowardice. They were wrong. Sarah pulled up images of the Ghost Fleet, of the weapons, of the systematic destruction. When peace failed, we showed them the other side of human nature, the side we kept hidden because we wanted to be better, the warriors we trained but hoped never to use, the weapons we built but prayed never to deploy. In 6 weeks, we destroyed 15 billion hegemony citizens. We broke their military. We shattered their will. We brought 12 species to the edge of extinction. Not because we wanted to, because they forced us to choose between our morality and our survival. She looked directly into the camera. To all species watching this transmission, humanity's greatest strength is that we choose peace first. We offer friendship before violence. We try negotiation before war. This has not changed. But when peace fails, when diplomacy is rejected, when our people are massacred and our kindness is used against us, Sarah's voice hardened. We are very, very good at the alternative. She pulled up the final choice device, showed the 2 signals. Today I gave the hegemony a choice: survival under human supervision or extinction. They chose life. That choice is still open to every species in this galaxy. Work with us, trade with us, build with us, and we will be the best neighbors you could hope for. But if you choose war, if you see our peace offers as weakness, if you mistake our hope for inability, Sarah pressed the second signal button, showed what it would have activated: the extinction protocols, the 94.6 billion deaths. Remember what happened here. Remember that humanity could have killed them all. But we chose mercy. We gave them one last chance. The choice is always yours. Choose wisely. The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, species who had been watching the human hegemony conflict with detached interest suddenly felt very differently about Earth. Humanity was no longer the weak species to be dismissed. They were the species that chose peace first. And when peace failed, they were the species you prayed would show mercy. The memorial wall stretched for 3 kilometers through what had once been Central Park. 2 sections, side by side. The first listed human casualties, 2.3 billion names, etched in black stone, each one a person, a family, a life ended by war. The second listed hegemony casualties, 15 billion names etched in white stone, each one a being who died because peace failed. At the base of the wall, single inscription: all victims of war, all lives that could have been saved. Remember, learn, never again. Sarah Mitchell stood before the wall with her brother. James looked older than his 74 years now. The weight of command had settled into his bones. He visited the wall every day, read names, remembered what he had authorized. Do you regret it? Sarah asked. James was quiet for a long time. I regret that it was necessary, but I do not regret doing what I had to do to save humanity. Even 15 billion deaths. Even that. Because the alternative was our extinction, and I would kill 1 billion more to prevent that. Sarah nodded slowly. I know. That is what frightens me. How easily we justify atrocity when survival is at stake. They walked along the wall, names blurred past. Too many to count, too many to comprehend. Kincaid has been running the refugee resettlement program, James said, helping hegemony civilians rebuild under supervision. She says it helps, saving thousands to balance the billions she killed. Does it help? No, but she keeps doing it anyway. And Cross, still logging everything, publishing the full records, both sides, all the atrocities. He wants future generations to know the complete truth, so they never forget what we became, so they understand the cost of survival. They reached the end of the wall, stood looking out at the reconstructed city, New York rising from the ashes, hegemony workers alongside human crews, former enemies building together under watchful supervision. Elena Reyes visits Cathar Prime every month, Sarah said, checks on the warriors paralyzed by the nerve agent, makes sure they are still alive, still conscious, still suffering. Why? She says it is her penance to face what she did, to never forget. We all need penance. Sarah turned to her brother. A new species made first contact last week. The Talorans. Advanced. Powerful. They sent a diplomatic envoy. And they offered a trade agreement, technology exchange, cultural cooperation. They were polite, respectful, nothing like the hegemony. James smiled grimly. They saw your broadcast. They know what happens when species underestimate us. Is that how we want to be known, as the species too dangerous to provoke, better than being known as a species too weak to survive? They stood in silence as the sun set over the memorial wall. 217 billion names catching the last light. Sarah's communicator chimed. She checked the message. Her expression changed. There is a ship approaching Earth. Unknown configuration. They are broadcasting on all frequencies. What do they want? Sarah read the message aloud. Greetings, humans. We are the Korvathi Collective. We come in peace. We wish to establish diplomatic relations with your species. We offer friendship, trade, alliance. James tensed. It could be a trap, another hegemony, or it could be a genuine offer of peace. What do you want to do? Sarah looked at the memorial wall, at the billions of names, at the cost of getting it wrong. Then she looked at her brother. I want to try peace first. One more time. Always one more time. And if they are like the hegemony, if they see our peace offers as weakness, Sarah's smile was sad but determined. Then we show them what happens when humanity stops being peaceful. The galaxy knows what we are capable of now, but they also know we choose mercy when we can. She started walking toward the landing platform where the diplomatic shuttle waited. James walked beside her. You never give up, do you? Even after everything. Even after 30 years of failure. You still believe peace can work. Someone has to, James. Someone has to remember that we are supposed to be better than this. They reached the shuttle. Sarah paused before boarding. Will you come with me to meet the Korvathi? James looked back at the memorial wall, at the record of what happened when peace failed, at the weight of 15 billion deaths he carried every day. Then he looked at his sister, at the woman who had died for peace and come back to give it one more chance. Yes, he said, but Sarah, I am bringing the Ghost Fleet, just in case. I would expect nothing less. The shuttle lifted off. Behind them, the memorial wall caught the last light of sunset. Billions of names glowing softly. A reminder of what humanity had lost and what they had almost become. In orbit, the Korvathi ship waited, broadcasting messages of peace and friendship. Sarah Mitchell prepared her opening statement. 37 years of diplomacy, 6 months in a coma, one successful negotiation that had saved 94 billion lives. She would try peace one more time, always one more time, because that was what humans did, even when it cost them everything, even when history proved them fools, even when the easier choice was violence. Humanity chose hope first, and if hope failed, the galaxy now knew exactly what came next. Sarah looked at the Korvathi ship through the viewport, at the unknown species offering friendship. Let's hope they choose wisely, she said quietly. James stood beside Veer, one hand on the Ghost Protocol activation console. And if they don't, Sarah smiled, then we give them the same choice we gave the hegemony. Survival under our terms, or extinction. The choice is always theirs, and ours. The shuttle approached the Korvathi vessel. First contact, another chance, another risk, another moment where humanity would prove whether they had learned anything from 15 billion deaths. Sarah Mitchell, 53 years old, scarred but unbroken, still believing in peace, Still ready to show the galaxy what happened when peace failed. Still human enough to hope, and dangerous enough that hope was no longer mistaken for weakness. The shuttle docked with the Corvathi ship. Ambassador Sarah Mitchell stepped forward to meet them. Behind her, invisible but present, the Ghost Fleet watched, ready to protect, ready to destroy, ready to prove one final time that humanity's greatest strength was choosing which side of their nature to show. The choice was always theirs, and they always chose peace first.